Thanks everyone for coming out today. Just want to give a little intro about myself. I am an account manager here within Podio. I've worked here probably for about 3 months now, focused mainly on a lot of onboarding with new customers and maintaining current accounts. I work with a lot of real estate type customers, so I am excited to be able to do this presentation for you guys today. What we're going to try to do is I want to show you guys a lot about how to build out your workspaces, your organizations, get things situated, get things in order. There's a lot of integrations and extensions that you can bring into Podio that will help accentuate the experience. But for now, we're just mainly going to focus on what you can handle natively with Podio, how you can get it to work for you, how you can modify the applications to be able to ease your life on a day-to-day basis. So what we're going to try to do initially is probably the first 3/4 of it will be me doing a presentation, and then we'll do a Q&A session at the end where I will be able to pick on you guys. If you have a question, you can actually click the raise hand button near the attendee list and it will raise your hand, and we'll go from there. Other than that, you guys can always type in questions. I have my colleague Charlie helping out as well. And I'm going to turn off my webcam now. All right, so this is, a workspace within Podio. If you guys are familiar with Podio or not, you're able to access the organization that you sign up for and create a set amount of workspaces. For our sake, we are using this real estate workspace that I have created with these applications here up top. At a glance, you really see what these are workspace tiles here. It's a good way of bringing in information, whether it be a calendar that's related to activities that are going on within your team. As you can see, there's also some other similar ones here for tracking marketing campaigns, offers, and properties, and I'll kind of get into that in a little bit as I explain. So I'm starting kind of what you guys really want to think about is if you're getting a pack of apps already, or if it's something you want to create from the start, there's always a way to modify or adjust that at any time to suit your needs. Now, standard, I guess, workspaces, I think within Podio, regardless of what kind of organization it is that you're working out of, I think a specific contact app is key to have. We did have workspace contacts beforehand, but we are going to kind of drive this actual contact app now. So I've built one out kind of simple. From each app level, you can actually see, if you click on the wrench icon, it will be synonymous with being able to modify or edit. So from here, I'm going to go into Modify Template and just kind of show you guys a little bit of how I got this set up. So it's just simple information, more of an address book for your contacts. A text field here can be used for a name. You have a phone number field, email, and then just a simple contact type and status. Again, I want to just let you guys know this is a very general setup, but it can be used and be very effective once you kind of modify it to suit your needs. So kind of the process that you guys have, obviously you have leads, appointments, offers. You can see they're all kind of listed here. One of the first things I did want to mention is this marketing campaign app. I know a lot of you guys market yourselves in many different ways. Natively with Podio, we don't have the ability to directly send out, if you're doing like a drip campaign, send out mail through that. But we do have a good way of keeping track of specific marketing campaigns that you're working on, whether it's one you're planning or one that you're actively doing. And then just keeping track of it, and you're able to attach through what we call a relationship field. You're able to link these marketing campaigns to a lead and so on. So if we go into add a marketing campaign here, you can see it's just really kind of simple information. You're able to give it a title of a particular campaign you're working on. And you have a simple category field, an idea. So if you guys have people on your team that, if it's like a prospective campaign that you want to be able to collaborate back and forth on, I've actually kind of created a sample one here that we'll be able to look at. So you can see it was just a simple one for a Facebook ad. A marketing idea, again, it's just kind of a one-liner or whatever you guys think, however you want to get that filled in. So what you're thinking here is you are getting rid of however else you track your campaigns when they're live or planning. If you have it maybe on an external folder on your computer or a drive somewhere, you're able to bring it in and kind of collaborate, and attach it and to be able to track. You saw it at the beginning when I showed my tiles. It was actually tracking that. So we have a category field here for a specific type of campaign you're working on, campaign status depending on how it is. If it's live, I have set up what we call a workflow to automatically populate the start date here. Other things you can see is that I simply mentioned the colleague to bring it in. So by mentioning this colleague here, you see that you're actually bringing them into the item. So by clicking the symbol, any activity, any item that you're creating, you're able to do this. It's a good way of keeping the communication specific to a particular item. So instead of emailing back and forth ideas with your internal colleagues, you're actually able to just mention them here within Podio. So I can mention Charlie and bring her into this item. And just by doing that and sending it, Charlie now gets notified and she can reply back if needed, and so on. So this is more of a place for you to be able to keep track of specific campaigns. Now these category fields are really what you're doing to signify the current status of it. So by selecting, a prospecting campaign, if you click back here, you can see this is kind of the hierarchy. We're in our real estate workspace. The application we're in is called marketing campaigns, and we're in the item called Facebook ad. If we click back here, this will take us back into the marketing campaign. You can see there's the two here. There's also kind of views here that you can create. You can also filter out views as well by clicking this little icon. So let's say you want to see, I want to see all Google AdWords campaigns that are prospecting. Let's say that you end up down the line, have a lot that you want to be able to filter out. You can create certain filters like that and then save a view accordingly. Apart from that, I do have an app here called Incoming Requests. So depending on how you guys market yourselves, there's certain ways to get incoming leads, whether it is, like I said, through an integration, or if you have a call service where you're triggering maybe an email to app type functionality where that's something you'd have to actually handle externally. But either way, what it is that you're really handling here is it's made up through the field. So if we go in again and go into modify a template, you can see the way that we built this out. You're gathering text fields here. Coming out shortly, we will be able to utilize these phone and email fields instead of text. But right now, the web form just does not support that. So you're basically advertising through maybe marketing. You're bringing in people. You're driving traffic towards this, maybe a link or towards your website. So this is kind of the information that makes up that web form. Simple things, phone, email, name, the address, maybe the ideal price, time frame of sale they're able to select, property type, bedrooms, and so on. And again, these are things that you can edit at any time or modify if needed. But by clicking done, if I click in this wrench icon and select web form here, you'll see it now brings up this new window. You can create a web form from any app. So if you have multiple needs for web form, only one web form can be associated with one app. So if you have a need for 2 or 3 web forms, you would need to have separate applications for each one. But either way, what you're doing is you have over here on the right side, you're selecting those fields that we were just looking at. So you're picking and choosing what you want the potential customer to be able to fill out. As you can see, I've unchecked stages like reached out because that's something that is going to be internally that they don't need to have access to. You're also able to make other adjustments here like a title and description for them. You can change a theme. It uses custom CSS. You guys know how to utilize that, and so on. And when you're completed, once you just hit this save and share button, it actually gives you a code that you can embed on your website if you get a developer who has access to that. But you also have access to this link. So you can see, just by, you can imagine if we fill this in, whatever information is really brought in here, and I hit that submit button, what it's going to do now is it's going to create a new item within Podio in the app that I created the web form for. So if I click back into my incoming request app, you'll now see that the test request is listed there. So this is another good way of getting an incoming request, not necessarily having to qualify them as a lead. Something that I have created here is a trigger through a category field. So let's say that I hit yes qualified, then it actually moves them into a lead, and I can show you guys what that's all about here in a second. So you could imagine if all the information was filled out, it would be here within the item. I've actually created a task as well, as you can see here if I refresh the page. a task was automatically created when a new incoming request was input through the web form. So you can see. So if we go in, we'll take a look at the kind of the workflow that I established here. So if I click back out, we'll click on the wrench icon and go into Manage Workflows. So for instance, these are ones that I've already created. You can see they're rather logic-based. Either when an incoming request is created, meaning that it's a new item, or it's something that's updated, meaning it's already there and you're going in and updating that item. So this one's really simple. If the incoming request is created, then what did I want to happen? I can update item here, meaning you're updating this exact item. So I am assigning, through people who are employees within your company that you invite, you can automatically assign that person to be in charge of that contact. As you saw, I was the person that was involved, and I had the status as not yet reached out. The next workflow that I have is if it's already an incoming request, if you're going and updating it, and now you're changing that to qualified, meaning you're going in, let's say you want to create a subtask on the side for someone to call this potential customer and try to gather some information from them, and then from that point you kind of figure out if it's someone that you're going to kind of push forward as a lead or not. Then we can do this create item through a relationship field. You just click and drag it down, so I can actually show you guys kind of a brief little thing here. You click and drag, and through a relationship field, it's going to say, which app do I want to create a new item in? So I want to create a new item in my leads application. And what you're doing here is now you're able to kind of select who's going to be in charge of that. You know, lead status, these are fixed options. You can also have variable options from the incoming request, so we can just say that they're coming in as a prospective lead. These are fields that I'll show you guys in the lead in a second, but you know, first call, not yet. Seller's ideal price. So in that incoming request field, there was a place where they were putting in their ideal price. So by clicking select variable here, we're actually picking a variable from the incoming request app and now moving it over to our deals app. So we're matching the seller's ideal price with the ideal price from the request. You can imagine same thing applies for mortgage and monthly rent and so on. And what that does, if we click back on, it creates an item into the Leads app. So I'll show you guys the Leads app, and I'll kind of give you a brief introduction on that, how it's kind of built out. So you can see it's a lot of similar fields from the incoming request app that we had. Same thing that you see. So there's a map field here. As you can see, these are kind of the things that make up the particular fields. You can match them up by what they do, kind of by the image here. So the map field, it links with Google Maps, so whatever address you type in, it will have an image field or location. So you can imagine if you are sending a colleague out to do an inspection or meet someone at a property, if they access this through their mobile application, they access a particular item, they will have a link to bring them into through Google Maps. They can get directions from that point on. So it's actually rather useful on the field as well. Other things you can see is a cool calculation field. It uses standard JavaScript for calculations, and the variables we're using are simple fields that we have here within our already existing Podio items. So you can see what I have here. This calculation is going to automatically populate the Zillow link right away. So these relationship fields are kind of something I was mentioning. So we have related marketing campaign, related seller, related request. So these relationship fields are a good way of linking apps together. So for instance, from my Leads app, I added this field by clicking and dragging it over, and you can just X that out. But what I did from here is I selected, it asks you to choose an app. So I did related, I selected marketing campaigns. It shows you a drop down of the current apps that you have within. So I want to relate an item from my marketing campaign to a particular lead. So you can imagine when that's in action, if we're going here and we click, it's going to now show those two marketing campaigns. So you can imagine when you have more, you're able to kind of pick and choose accordingly. So by selecting the postcard, I am now linking the postcard marketing campaign to this lead. And these are actually clickable badges that you can access. So if I click here, it will take me in to the marketing campaign app, into the postcard. And you can actually see from this marketing campaign item that it is actually related to two leads now. Apart from that, we can click back into the main workspace here. Other things, we have this activity stream. It's just going to show a lot of updates as they happen if you want to look at it at a glance. Some people find it useful. I think you really just need to find a good use for you. I think a lot of the work is usually done in the apps and the views that you have. Apart from that, I think a really cool feature is a communication log. So depending on how often you are communicating with your potential customers, there's an application here. Again, you can see this relationship field. I've related it to the Leads app. A simple category field here to categorize what type of communication it is that you're having. A communication type where it's maybe a qualifying call that you're doing, a first attempt with the lead, second attempt, third attempt. And these are things that you can trigger perhaps after a third attempt, it's a dead lead. You're able to change that status. These are things that you can create through a workflow. It's a check-in call, offer-related, contact reach, who made the call. Now this is a contact field. Don't get this confused with the contact app. Now the contact field is meant for workspace members. That means people on your team that are involved in your workspace that you've invited in. And then a simple space for notes and a date. So you can see that in action. If I click from my communications, add communication, let's say I can select from one of my contacts or not, or a particular lead. I can pick the communication type. Maybe it's an email that you received that you want to add. Again, this is through the relationship fields. You're able to track back and forth. So let's say I select phone call. It's a check-in. I reach them. So again, here's that contact field. You'll see these are the 5 workspace members that I have. So if I can select one of them, maybe my colleague Emma, and then add some notes on that check-in call. Basically, what was done on that call. Any type of notes you want. Throw a date stamp on it. And once you save that communication, it's now linked to this particular lead. So if I click back onto the lead again through this badge that's now created, we can see here it takes us into the Leads app again. And if we scroll all the way down, it's going to now show us there is a related communication log. So instead of kind of keeping track through comments, it can get a little cluttered, I guess you can say, if you're speaking with people on multiple occasions, where you now have this app where you're kind of doing most of that work and linking it through a relationship field. Other than that, other apps that we have, let's say, part of the process that you have, maybe there's a property inspection. For some people this may apply, for some it doesn't. This is another time where the mobile app, I think, is really a cool feature, whether it be an Android, iOS tablet, or phone. You can just go into the Google Play or App Store and download the mobile app. But if we go in, we can see again through the relationship, we can add a related lead, an inspector. So this was that contact app again. So someone from your team, you're saying who's going to go out and inspect the property. If it's scheduled, you can pick a date that it's scheduled for and perhaps a time. And then you're kind of leaving the rest. So when this gets assigned to someone, when they access it from their mobile app, they'll be able to actually go in and they can upload images from the field. They can type in notes, or they can have an estimated repair cost. Or if it's something that you take the pictures and then come back to the office and do that as well. Again, either way, you can imagine if you save this through the relationship field, it's now linked back to that lead. So everything is kind of communicating back and forth with one another, whether it be the communications or the offers or the leads. Through this relationship field, everything is tracked back and forth. And it's actually rather handy to kind of keep it that way. Other thing that you see here, this appointment app. Now this is an event type app. So this is going to be added to calendars. You can use this for standard, just kind of internal meetings, or you can use it for perhaps if you're meeting with colleagues or clients at a property. Again, you can see it's rather simple what I have here. You're able to add if there's other types here. Just by clicking enter, it actually would save itself once you hit done here, or you can remove it. Either way, we have the participants. Again, these are contacts from your team who are attending this specific appointment. You can attach a related lead and or related contact here through the relationship field again. You can categorize it as a meeting type, add a date, a location, and an agenda. So by going in and adding an appointment, again, whoever it is, I'm logged in as Dominic Chapman here, whoever creates the item is going to be selected here. You can add or remove participants by selecting that. And you can actually share this item with somebody who is not on Podio yet if you're going to be meeting with them just by typing in their email address. And by typing in their email address, let's just say that we just add it here and save the appointment, you are now bringing that person into the item. You're sharing the item with them. So item share is another cool feature. Let's say it's an offer that you guys create and you want to communicate with the customer, but you don't want to bring them into your entire Podio workspace, but you still need to do a lot of the communication through here. If you click this share button up here in the upper right corner, you can actually type in an email address as well, whatever it may be. Give them a welcome message. And with paid plans, you can actually offer a view for read-only access, meaning that they can view it, but they can't make any adjustments. But what you're doing with that, again, like how I mentioned, you're able to kind of communicate back and forth here on the comments, and the communication is centered around a particular item. Instead of general conversation where maybe you might lose it in the course of a few months or weeks, you're able to communicate specifically on an item. And that's another kind of cool feature I think that you can do where you're bringing people onto Podio, getting them a little more involved. Other than that, obviously you're going to be making offers with clients and customers. If we go in and kind of check the buildup of this application, you can see it's simple, a relationship field for a lead. Other situations you guys might think of, would be perhaps a calculation field, again, using JavaScript if you wanted to calculate maybe a percentage of commission. Then you can add, a number field and just call it, percentage commission. So now it's something new that you're adding here in the offer amount. So if it's accepted, then perhaps you want to add just a standard calculation. And now you can say, again, so you're bringing in through the variable, add offer amount. And let me actually save this real quick, because you'll notice we actually, since I haven't saved, this won't be pulled in on the calculation. But let's say, for instance, on this offer here, that we have 0.03 commission percentage. If we go into the modified template here now, we're able to kind of select what type of concrete number it is you want to display. And you can do this from any of the apps. So now there it is. If we go in again to modified template up here, we'll be able to pull in a calculation field. And now you can say at the offer amount if this is an accepted agreement. And now you're pulling in the commission percentage. So what you're doing from here is you're taking the 3% off of that offer amount, and now you're able to track what the commission percentage is. Again, if you don't like calculation, you can just type that in and you say whatever you really want. So now this is another thing that you can track through a calculation field. You're pulling the variables of the offer amount and the percentage that you have of the commission. So now you can see on the closing, it's now going to display a concrete number for the total commission earned. These are things that you guys want to think about as well as maybe some specific information that you want to track in the process. So let's say that we are creating an offer here. We're going to add an offer again. We're going to relate it to one of our leads if we get to that point in the process. You're going to throw the offer amount in here. You're going to mark this off as sent. You can just put in the percentage if you want. And now you're applying a deadline to it. So let's say that we're going to make it on the 13th. So by saving this offer, you can now see a couple updates just happened. There was a task that was automatically created to check in on the offer. So if we go in, I can kind of show you guys how to kind of auto-create tasks. These are things when you're thinking about in regards to Podio and how you guys manage your work on a day-to-day function is how or what steps in the process you need to be maybe delegating work to a particular colleague, or when you want to set a reminder for somebody, or when an item needs to be created. As long as you can map that out and think out that process, you can really build that out through the workflows here within Podio. So again, from the Offers app, if I click this wrench icon and go into Manage Workflows, we can see that one I have created here is to update lead. I'll actually just delete it. You can remove already existing ones, and I'll just recreate it just to show you kind of the logic behind it. So if I go into create workflow, I'm saying anytime an offer is created, and if the future offer status contains sent. So if I'm creating a new offer and I check off sent as the offer status, then I want to create a task. So now I can say check in on offer with, so now if I do this variable here, we can pull in the particular client. Now this would be a field that we would need to add, so you could say related lead. So what you're saying when this pulls in, it's now gonna bring up the lead name instead of just a standard standard task where all of them are just going to say check in on offer. You can automatically assign it to someone, to a particular person on your team, or maybe current user on app, meaning the person who's creating this offer. They are associated or known as the current user on the app. So they're automatically going to be the person who this task is assigned to. You can apply a due date to it. Let's say current time now plus maybe 3 days. And now you can put in some details, whatever details you really want when the task is created. And then you just give it a name. So we'll say something simple, kind of just to label it by. So now you can see when we click in here, you'll see anytime an offer is created and the offer status is sent, then we want to check in with, and it's assigned to the current user on the app and it's due in 4 days. So if we see this here in action, if I add an offer, for our sake, I'll just kind of save it right here. And the workflow should then trigger the task to be created, check in an offer. And once you refresh the page, it'll be there. Now, you would be normally receiving notifications up here in the notification bar, but since I am actually viewing the app, it's not giving me a specific notification. If I would have selected someone else on my team, they would have received a notification, whether it be in their email or through Podio. However, you can always just go in right here into My Account settings, and you just select email and notifications, and you can actually pick and choose how you want to be notified or when you want to be notified. Back into the workspace here. A couple other things, that you might want to automate is, a closings app, which is essentially just going to be housing your closed deals. So I've set up another workflow here that we can see live. If it's an accepted request, you're able to check that off. And what that's going to do now, you can see within the activity stream, it's now created a new item in closing. So if we click here on this item, you'll see it actually brings us into the closings app. And through the workflow, it related the lead, the offer, the closing date as the current time, and the closing price. So if we backtrack a little bit, these are things I want you guys to start thinking about, are the workflows of, like I said, what portions do you need automated opposed to what portions you don't. So the one I had was the accepted offer. So we're saying anytime we go into an offer and it's updated and the offer status is changed, and the future offer status, meaning what you are going in and accepting or what you are selecting equals accepted, then what do I want to happen? I clicked and dragged the create item down here. So through the relationship field, I selected the closings app via incoming the related offer. So I can show you guys that again. You just click and drag. You can do as many of these as you want within a particular workflow. So if I click and drag this to the open space, you'll see it's going to say these are apps that are related to my offers. So I say that I want to create an item in the related offer on my closings app. Now, this is what information do I want to populate on the closings app. We're pulling the variable, the related lead from the offer is also going to be associated as a related lead on the new closing item. The closing date is going to be current time now, because that's when I selected accepted. And the closing price, again, we're going to select a variable by clicking that. We're able to pull in an option from the offer app and move it to the closings app. So the offer amount from the accepted offer is now moving in as the closing price on the closing. And that was essentially what you guys saw there. So as you can see, the tracking is rather simple, but I think it's rather useful as well. Let's say that you have 3 or 4 marketing campaigns that are actually live and going, and you want to keep track of how successful a particular marketing campaign is. Post other ones, so you know in the future what type of marketing do we want to do, what's successful for us. So what we did is, again, through the Leads app, we added that relationship field. So every time that we attach, let's just say we go into this one, every time that we attach a related marketing campaign, it's relating it to that particular item, whether it be that postcard item that I had created, or if I click back here on marketing campaign, we can see at the all marketing campaigns that there are currently 2. So since they're attached to the leads, a way that you can start thinking of as reporting, if we go into the leads here, what I did was you can just create a report by clicking this plus button here, and now you're selecting what it is specifically that you want to be kind of keeping track of. So the first thing you kind of want to be doing the reports off of are the filters. So if we go in, these filters are based off of the fields within the Leads app. So if I select like related marketing campaign, now you can see these are the related marketing campaigns that are associated with the app. So you can either pick one or the other, or you can pick both, however you want to do it. But let's say that I want to see the marketing campaigns, and now I want to have a count of all of the marketing campaigns per who's in charge of the lead, or maybe I want to create something different. So you can see how the logic kind of works here. Maybe I want to do the count. If I click cancel here, let's say that we're just viewing all leads. Another one would be, let's say I want to see the count meaning count of leads. So there's currently 3 leads. I want to see which of these 3 leads, and I want to break it down by related marketing campaign. So now you can see 2 of the 3 leads are related to the postcard, and 1 is related to the Facebook ad. One of the cool features that you can think of, maybe if you're tracking maybe money, percentage earned, or things like that, is that we do offer a little more kind of advanced reporting visuals with the premium tier of the Podio plan, where we do have the bar chart and the bar chart and the line chart. Currently, if you go for standard reporting, we do offer the table view, which is kind of simple text like this. If that applies for you guys, then that's fine. But when you're happy with the report that you have, you just kind of hit the next button here, and now you're doing a title. So what does this report to you? For me, this is marketing to lead tracking. Now you're selecting the unit. So we're saying these are leads as it filled in. So postcard has 2 leads, and now you can save. So it can be an app report, your home page. So this is your organization homepage. You can save it to the workspace homepage. Let's say that you have multiple workspaces, or to the employee network, meaning anyone that's part of your organization that shares the same domain would then be able to see this. For our sake, I would hit Save Report here. And by doing that, I already created, I'll just click back here onto the activity stream. That is essentially this report here. And that's going to be continually updating itself. Now I wanted to kind of get back into the contact field here, because sometimes I noticed that maybe some people don't really find it necessary to be tracking particular contacts that they're using. The reason that I think it is important to keep track of contacts is perhaps you're working with this person today, but maybe somewhere down the line, whether it be in a few months or a year, or however, you're going to work with this person again. So by having them here already existing as an item, through the relationship field, like I mentioned, you're able to, again, attach them to a lead. So let's say we're going to add a new lead here in the future, and we can just put in whatever the address was that we had. Let's see what pops up when I do that. How about that one? So this is through that relationship field to the contacts. As you add more, you'll be able to see. So let's say that I'm speaking with James again. You're able to attach James to this lead. Now, regardless of what information you put here, let's just say that I save this. We can now see if we click on James' contact card, it's going to take us into the Contacts app. And now James is related to this already existing lead, but now he's related to this new one that I just created. So now you can see through the process, you've spoken with James more than once. You've worked with this person on multiple occasions. Same thing applies if you have like real estate agents or bird dog contacts. You're able to keep all of those particular contacts in a contacts app. Now, that doesn't mean that you can create a separate app maybe to house buyer and seller contacts if that's something that you guys prefer. That's something that's totally doable as well. All that you really want to think about is when you're adding the relationship field, how it's going to apply. So let's say, for instance, James is instead a real estate agent or a bird dog type contact. By selecting that, we can now go in. Let's say we want to modify our lead template here to say maybe who's in charge, who brought this lead in, if you guys have that. So if I go back and go into modify template, this will bring us into the where you can go in and edit. Again, like I said, you guys are able to edit these fields at any time. So let's say during your time as a real estate investor, wholesaler, whatever it is that you're doing, there's a change in pace or there's a change in flow how you do things. You know, maybe you want this to be moved here. You can just click and drag, or you can just delete an item, or you can always add new items. It's up to you, and that's something that I think is important to kind of always keep in mind, is the beauty of how you can always be changing and modifying your Podio workspace. And you know, we're always here through support or through an account manager if you guys are on that page here to answer any of those questions as well. But either way, so we can see, let's say that we want to add maybe a related bird dog to this. So again, that would be not a contact field, because that contact field is associating itself with people who are workspace members, people you are inviting onto Podio, not keeping as an item for tracking purposes. Now, if they were someone that you had within Podio, then you would use that contact field. But for our sake right now, we're going to use a relationship field. And we can see we're going to relate back to that similar contacts app in my real estate workspace. And you just give it a name. Let's say that we want to say bird dog. So now it's showing who is the person who was in charge of that for a particular property. So if we go into a already existing one here, you'll see it's going to link itself to that same contact field, but you would know who the person was by their name. But if you've multiple people here, you can also search. So you know the name, you'll be able to search it. Let's say it's James. Let's say it's someone you're working with for the first time. One of the cool things about this relationship field is that you can actually create a new item in that particular field that you're relating to. So if I hit create new item, you'll notice up here it's going to take me into my contacts app, and now I can create a new item. So let's say I'm just going to add myself as that, particular information. And this is through the phone and email field, not the standard text field. And it's a bird dog, active or non-active, just something really simple. Again, these are things that you guys can change. But now by creating that and saving it, it now brings me back into the Leads app, and there I am selected as the new bird dog for tracking purposes. So as you guys can see, there's a lot of potential. I kept it, pretty general, pretty vague with the demonstration that I was showing you guys. Again, there are a lot of other integrations that you can bring into Podio if you guys need to automate perhaps a drip campaign where mailers need to be sent out to particular clients, or you need to be bringing in incoming leads from a call service that you guys use. There are ways to accomplish that. And there's good ways to go out for help. We always have help.podio.com. The help center is very useful. We have a lot of good blog posts in there. Just like this recording is actually going to be posted there following. But also, a simple Google search usually does the trick as well. Looking in whatever the product is and then just typing the Podio name after. I've actually found a lot of answers personally myself just by doing that, whether it be bringing me to my help center or to a third-party site. I don't want to mention names of other integrations, but a third-party integration software that links with Podio, they would have some great instructions on how to link it as well. So really what you're saying is we have the contacts that you invite in. You guys are here. You're communicating with each other in this workspace. The beauty of it, as you can see, is that everything is social. You guys are able to see everything that's happening and keep a really strong eye on processes organization, and so on. You can see other kind of tiles are based off of reports I've created, so maybe closed properties, offer deadlines. These are based off of reports, but you can also add new tiles just by clicking. This is going to be everywhere on your workspace or organization homepage and so on. You're able to add other tiles as well, things that apply to you. Maybe there's links, or you want to link a certain app to it. Maybe it's incoming requests. So now you can see these are incoming requests. You're linking that now as a tile. You find what's important to you, and you're able to kind of build that in and implement that on Podio. So I think I kind of went over a lot of the basics. I don't know if I went too fast for you guys or not, but I think, again, really the importance is just to know how to do the modifications. So let's say that you guys start a Podio account, and you end up downloading some app packs, and you're kind of confused. Maybe you don't really know what the processes are or how you want to track it. Really think about internally how you guys do your work, and then kind of build out accordingly. So if you don't need a communications, or if you find that leads and incoming requests can be handled the same way, then you could just create a web form from the Leads app instead of here, just by clicking that wrench icon again and selecting web form. Or at any time, just go in and modify the template. Really simple. I think those are kind of the most important things that you guys need to think about. I think that's kind of the most that I have as far as the presentation is concerned. So what I want to do now is I want to open up the floor to questions. So if you guys want to look on your Podio control panel, there's actually a space that looks like a hand with a green arrow pointing up. If you do that, it's essentially you're raising your hand. I'll be able to select you and unmute you, and we can go into some questions. So let's get started here. I see that Kevin has a question. Hey there, Kevin. Can you hear me? We had a hand raised. Oh, looks like you put it down. Okay, looks like we have another one here. Rex, how are you doing?
Good. So, couple of questions. There's
Sure.
a contacts app within this workspace, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an overall contacts next to on the top bar next to Podio. Is that up there? Is that automatically populated?
Yeah, so let me kind of explain the difference between those two. So this is what we call, Podio contacts or workspace contacts that you can actually add by clicking the wrench icon and going into workspace contacts. Now, there's a difference between these two. A workspace contact, we're actually going to get rid of this process. So don't be alarmed if you guys have a lot of workspace contacts through this portion already created, because we are going to have a way on the back end during the process, and we'll kind of notify you guys ahead of time that we're actually going to be moving this into a contact app. So it's different. They're not going to sync up directly like you're thinking. They're actually two entirely different things. The contact app could be any app, just like the communications app or an incoming request app, because each contact that you're creating is essentially an item within Podio. The reason that we like doing this is for, like what I was doing with James here, as you're able to track how many items this person is linked to through the contact item. Now, you could just use the contact field and throw that in, but to answer your question, they are completely different. They don't sync with one another, and we're actually going to be getting rid of the workspace contact field. So I wanted to, stress, if I go into the template here, to just create a contact type app where you're actually using a text field for the name, phone number, email, contact type, however you want to categorize that.
Oh, in your other app, your Leads app, you have the text, phone, and email fields there. But don't you want it to be the contacts field instead?
I do, yeah. So from the Leads app, if we go in, you can see that I actually have the relationship field for seller, or whatever you want to call it, contact, whatever name you want to give it. You can type that in however you'd like. But you can see through the relationship, if I click here, choose an app, it actually is linked to my contacts app.
Okay.
So we're pulling an item from the contacts app. So if I go back in and say, if I click on one of these items and go into add, from the seller, you would see, you know what, it looks like I actually need to adjust. Hold on 1 second here. That it will actually bring in the contacts. So you can see when I go and I select the contacts app. So now you're linking through the relationship field, a field within the lead to the contact. So by clicking here, these are the 4 contacts I've created. So now you can say that Grievous is the seller. So now you're attaching that contact item into Podio. And by clicking here, you're tracking back to the contact item within the app itself.
Will this portion be on the recorded? That's posted?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the questions will be there. No problem at all.
Yeah, because that was really fast, but that's something that I definitely want to go over again. With marketing, would you have like a separate app for the marketing channel and a different one for the campaigns and then link those together? Because I know for this presentation you just have like a general thing, but you know, marketing the campaign is every time you reach out, you know, you might do postcards multiple times and you want to track the different effectiveness of each time the postcards go out, and that could each be a different campaign.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can create a separate workspace for that. You know, other things that you can do that I didn't really touch on from the marketing campaign is, you know, you're giving it a title. I just gave it postcard as a standard name. You know, you can give it a unique title, but also you can filter out specific campaigns maybe by a start date. But if you want to have a campaign where, or maybe a separate workspace or a separate app, you know, you can do that as well. You know, through these relationship fields, if I go into the, you know, to my leads app here, for instance, you can actually relate through the relationship field to an app. So let's say right here, these are all of the workspaces within this organization. Right now we are in the we're in the workspace called Real Estate Webinar. But let's say that you have an app called Marketing or Marketing and Campaigns or a workspace. You're able to link it that way if you want to track to the lead to an app within a different workspace. So as you can see, if I type in, it's going to show contacts within different workspaces. So there's a general real estate one that we also have. I can link it to contacts there. Same thing would apply to the marketing. If you had a workspace titled Marketing or a separate app titled Marketing, you could just link it through the relationship that way. Again, I kept it really simple just to kind of show you the gist or the basics of what you can do, but you can really build this out as advanced as you would like.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Rex. Yeah, let me get to the next question here, but thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely have this recorded, so you'll be able to check that out live. Next question, it looks like we have from Gino. Hey, Gino, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good, good. I have a question with regards to the workflow module. Imagine you have an incoming request for a client. Is there some way you can push a reminder for instance, if you have to follow up 2 weeks after that specific client contacts you, that somehow Podio pushes to you that you have to do a follow-up or a specific task related to that incoming call at some point in time?
Yeah, so you're thinking like if you create a lead
Exactly.
that you want to have a task to remind you to follow up?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, there's kind of some simple things that you can do. Like for instance, let's say it's from like an incoming request where it's coming in from the web form or however else you are generating your leads into Podio. We can just go into manage workflows here. So we could say, for instance, a workflow that we would want to create would be if an incoming request is created, then we want to create a task, and now you can say follow up with, and again, here's that variable that I mentioned. If we just hit the @ symbol, it's going to pull in. These are fields from the incoming request app. So if I do @name, it's going to say whatever the name is. So follow up with that name. You can auto-assign that to somebody.
Yeah.
Or who needs to reach out. So let's just say that I want to auto-assign it to myself. Now you can give it a due date, tomorrow, today, next Friday, next Monday. If you need more time, you can hit current time now and add the X amount of days that you want for it to be. So if you want it in 14 days, 13 days, you can assign that task add the details, and now you can say this is a new request task to follow up, or whatever you want to call it. Now you can make these a little more advanced even. Let's say that it's maybe by property type. So if you select future property type containing land, let's say for every commercial type property, I need Evan to reach out. So now this would be new request. So these are kind of things you can think about as well for the triggering. And now you can create a separate workflow for if an incoming request is created. And now instead of land, we're saying that the future property type would contain like a condo or apartment. Now you can create that task. Same thing, but now you can just assign it to a different team member. So those are things you want to think about as well. But yeah, you can attach as many days as you want to it just by doing current time now and selecting the amount of days that you want.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, same thing applies too. I just wanted to jump in. Let's say from the leads, for instance. Let's say that you have a field in here that you're tracking maybe call status, maybe first call not reached or second call attempt, third call. The same thing applies where instead of selecting the future property type like I did, you can say if you're going into a lead and you are selecting first call not reached, then you can create a task for somebody to reach out for that second attempt. So it kind of applies in that same light.
All right, seems very straightforward. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much, Gino. All right, it looks like we have Andrew here. How are you doing, Andrew? Can you hear me?
I can indeed.
How are you doing today?
Fine. I've just typed the question in as well, just in case you needed a heads up. You was mentioning that you was getting rid of the contacts concept within Workspace, which is good, and moving it to an app. Mm-hmm. Will that allow us, for when we create a task using Workflow, to assign it to the contact app or another contact within the Workspace, so that, for example, if you have an incoming lead for a certain area, like Brighton, Illinois, then you want Fred to look after it. But if it comes into New York, then you want John to look after it. So you want to assign the task to that particular person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Totally, yes. I mean, you can imagine, too, on the incoming request, what you're thinking is what triggers these workflows for the most part are category fields. So let's just say that I'm just going to call it area, for instance. So let's just say that we have, New York or Illinois or whatever else you want to put. However you categorize it, if it's by county or whatever it is for the incoming request, this is something that you can say if we go in and manage workflow. The same thing would really apply. So we can say if an incoming request is created and if the future area contains New York. So that means anytime that it's New York is the area, then you can create a task. And now with that task, you can assign it to a direct person.
Okay, but can you see that assigned to where you've got the users there? That's the users within Podio, isn't it?
Yes. So this will not link to... Go ahead, sorry.
What I would like to see is perhaps that assigned to being a relationship to an app similar to the Contacts app that is replacing the Workspace contacts.
Okay, that would be a little different. You can do that. You can definitely accomplish that as well, and I'll show you how to do that. So, if opposed to creating a task, because tasks can only be created for people who are actively on Podio, so that's why it only gives you people who are part of that workspace, because those are the people that you can assign the tasks to. Now, let's say that you want to link it. You're going to add a relationship field here. Let's just say, and we're going to link that to our Contacts app, and we'll just call it, for our sake, related contact. So what you would do in this situation for the workflow, we'll go into manage workflows here again, create workflow. We would say, for instance, how about any time an incoming request is created, and if the future area contains New York, instead of creating a task, because that's only associated with people who are actually on Podio in your workspace, you can actually update item here. Now these are features that you get with the advanced workflow that come with the Plus and Premium tier. You get the and if, meaning that you can break it down by specific category, but also you can create an item in a new app. You can update an item in a different app, but in our sake, we're going to update an item here, meaning we are updating this particular item. So anytime an incoming request is created and it equals New York, then you can see these are all the fields from the incoming request app. We want to assign a related contact. So we should be able to pull in a particular contact from here. Let me see if I did something incorrect. Contacts real estate webinar. Okay, let me check that one more time here.
It's gone quiet at this end.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was just checking something here. I actually might be incorrect as far as that was concerned. As far as auto-assigning a variable through the workflow. So I would need to check that out again. Give me 1 second here.
I think you just deleted the relationship.
I believe the relationship field is still there. So actually, I'm not 100% if that would actually work. It doesn't seem like it will. Just by thinking about the logic, I could imagine that that wouldn't actually work. But you could. Yeah, you know what? I'm afraid actually that feature actually would not work. I apologize for that.
Okay. Can you understand where I'm going from? The way you'd have a lookup table and say, well, based on the zip code, you can work out where people are and.
Oh yeah, no, totally. I know exactly what you mean. But you can imagine how that would apply to like the workspace contacts, where it is a concrete option of something. You could actually auto-assign it to a person that is a part of your workspace like that. But if it's like New York, you wouldn't be able to attach like a particular item, like a specific marketing campaign, depending on that.
Okay.
It wouldn't really work that way, unfortunately.
Okay. Can I ask another question just while I've got you?
Yeah, of course. No problem.
Sorry to butt in on the queue.
Oh, it's fine. We can go a few minutes over. That's not a big deal.
Excellent. We British are not good with queuing. On the workflow, are you planning of creating another action, sort of like if then else? Because if you can just go into the little spanner to have a look at the workflow.
Sure. You're thinking of adding like more logic to the abilities of the workflow?
Well, it is sort of the effect really. So where you've got your create task, create action, are you going to stick something new in there at some point? For example, send email.
Yeah, you know, those are a lot of things that we're hopefully going to try to work on. You know, there are a lot of integrations out there that would be able to kind of auto-send. For instance, you know, a product like GlobiFlow that a lot of people use is actually able to automatically send emails through that. Maybe one day in the future, I'm not 100%, but I could imagine that something like that would be worked on the back end where we would want to try to automate that and offer that process as well. But currently, I am not aware of that happening. But that is some great feedback. I'll definitely take note of that and see on the back end if anything like that is happening.
Okay, because obviously we can be clever and use webhooks and, as you say, GlobiFlow or Zapier or something to sort of realize something's happened and do it that way. I was just thinking of keeping it within the Podio product as opposed to something external.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the things about Podio, too, is that it can be the home base for everything, and a lot of integrations work with it, especially if you find something that doesn't work. But I could imagine somewhere in the future that we would be bringing something like that on board because it is a rather useful tool, especially for your guys' type of use case in the real estate environment.
Right. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Have a great day.
Yeah.
All right, David, how are you doing?
Oh, hi, good. So my question is, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Uh, we maintain several large databases that our marketing campaigns come from. So how do we relate those campaigns into Podio? I see you have the marketing app and these different apps. But where would we, right now we maintain these in Google Drive. So we want to be able to create our campaigns and use information from our databases. So do we put them in Google Drive, or do we take them, put them in Podio, or do we take them from our other source?
So, really the reason why I have it here is for that tracking, like those reports that I showed you, where you can see how successful a marketing campaign is depending on how it's attached to a particular lead through that relationship. Now, if you find that you don't need to be doing anything like that, then there's a couple options that you have. Let's say that you have a particular lead. We do have the ability to, if you scroll down, to choose a file. So you can link it with your file sharing service, whether it be a share file, Dropbox, or Google Drive, and then you can actually attach that marketing campaign type file to your lead if you want to kind of track it that way as well. Same thing applies if you just want to bring it into a marketing app. Then you can just go in if you don't want to put in all the specifics, or if you do, then you can use that file upload again and just upload your marketing campaign from Google Drive here, where you're keeping track of it in multiple locations.
Okay. So how does the marketing campaign then how do we get the, like if we're doing a merge or something like we normally do now to do our marketing campaign, how do we do that from Podio?
So you're not really doing the actual campaign from here. You are keeping track of the campaigns, whether it's one that you're working on, you want to collaborate on ideas on how to set up the particular campaign, or if it's one that's live. As you can see, since I kept it pretty simple, it's more so just a way of keeping track of what type of campaign it is that you're currently working on. Now, a lot of the stuff on the back end, like for instance, sending out postcards or mailers, we don't have the ability to do that. That's why, again, an external application that you can bring in, link with your Podio account, could perhaps send out the direct mail. But for instance, what we have here within the native Podio platform is more so just kind of tracking marketing campaigns in the source of where you're just putting in simple information on it.
So it doesn't come into Podio until we actually get a response and becomes an active lead.
Exactly, yeah. So, you can set up, specific triggers, but yeah, so you're attaching, depending on the lead that you get, you're able to track maybe by what type of marketing campaign that came from, and then you would just, through that relationship field, attach the particular marketing campaign to that particular lead.
Okay. All right, thanks.
No problem. Have a good one. All right, I have time for a few more questions if anyone has any. All right, I'll take these last two. I see Eric and Valerie raise their hand. I'll take your guys' questions, and then we'll kind of call it from there. How are you doing, Eric?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. What can I do for you?
I am brand new to Podio.
Okay.
I've just had it a couple of days. And my question is, the software that you're currently using right now, is that built somewhere where I can just take that and modify it to my needs?
We're thinking about, perhaps publishing this pack of apps that I have generated and publishing it. So you can imagine when you create a workspace, you do have access to the app market, which will take you in, and we're hopefully going to have this input, perhaps maybe even after this session, where we can publish it to the app market under Podio for real estate, where you would be able to go in and get that pack. Why don't I get your information though, and I can actually let you know when we get that up. I think when we post the blog, we're going to have something on Podio and kind of inform you guys. We can kind of notify you that we were able to get that app pack up and running. But for now, we do offer from here. So yes, you can go into the app market and pull any app pack kind of in response to what you're interested in or what your field is. And I think the thing I wanted to kind of mention at first is to rid yourself of confusion is to know how to modify that yourself. So if you got this app pack, from any app that you click on, you're just able to click the wrench icon and modify and adjust to your needs. So yes, to answer your question, you can definitely do that. We're gonna publish this soon, so you'd be able to get the same one and adjust it and modify it to your needs.
Okay. So where do I get the? You just pulled up a list of app packs, and I couldn't figure out where you got it from. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. So when you are in, let's just say that you're creating a workspace, you're brought in to an activity stream. So let's just say I just go into create workspace from here.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to display just a clear blank slate. So by adding an app, you can either create your own or you can go into the app market. And that will bring you in. You can see it's listed by functional or industry, depending on how you want to search. And again, you can get an app pack, or you can just download one app at a time, depending on what works for you.
All right, that's what I needed. Thank you. You want me to just type my email address in the box?
I actually have it. I wrote it down while we were speaking.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Have a good one. All right, Valerie, you were the last person. What can I do for you today?
Hi. I just have a question regarding your appointment app. So my question is, if I want to use Podio in a kind of similar way as Google Calendar, where I want to set up and invite people just so that they have the invitations in the calendar. So my question is, if you could just explain how I can do this, and also in this app, if I add additional fields, for example, related fields or any additional information, whether it will be available or visible to people that I just invite for the meeting.
Yes, definitely. So when you're inviting someone to an app, you're essentially sharing that item with them and only that item. So if I invited you to this appointment here, you would see that it would only share with you. You would only have access to view this. You wouldn't be able to click into anywhere else on my workspace. But either way, we can go in. You're able to modify the template. You can make the appointment app however you want. You can even have multiple appointment apps. But by going in to modify a template, let's say that you have an app maybe for invoicing or something like that, then you can invite the person. So right now I have relationship fields to leads or contacts. Let's say that I want to change this relationship field, or I want to add a relationship field, and I want to relate it to maybe a property inspection.
Right.
So we can just now give that a title, whatever you want to give it. So now by hitting done, you just added a new field, or you can delete one at any time. So by adding an appointment here, it's automatically going to pick me as the participant. If I want to bring you into this item, what I can do now is just type in an email address. So let's just say, for instance, that we want to bring in, let's say I can just put you on here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, my question is slightly different. So my question is that, for example, let's say I organize a meeting with a client, okay? So what I want to do, I want to send an invite to the client to meet in a particular place or to have a call, right? Now, what I also want to do in Podio, I want to put my notes, or I want to, some additional information, but I don't want this information to be visible. So I only want the client to use to get the invitation and add the calendar event into his or her calendar rather than actually go into Podio.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can do that as well. You would need to have a separate app for that, because really what you're doing is the item that you're sharing with them. Like if I invited you to this as an appointment, you would be able to see this item and anything that I do within here. So if you had a relationship field from here, let's say that this meeting is related to this particular lead. Now, when I click in here, the invited person would not be able, they would see this relationship, but they wouldn't be able to click onto that. So let's say during your meeting, you would be able to take notes on the related item that's associated with the appointment and so on. So that's kind of where you would want to take the notes.
Okay. So just to summarize, essentially, so I need a separate app that's called, let's say, meeting notes, which is related to the actual meeting. And if my client is not invited to this one, then she won't be able to see it.
That's correct. Yeah, because if they're viewing this item with you live, then they're going to see changes that you make. Now, you can imagine this being in a good scenario where, let's say, maybe it's an invoice or an offer that you want to share with the customer. Then you can share the item, and you guys, by clicking here, and then you guys can communicate back and forth on the comments instead of through email. So that would be a time where it would be good to share an item with someone and keep track of notes on that, opposed to a meeting where you want to kind of keep it separate.
And then just the last question. So, but when I receive when I send when I have a calendar invite, right, the meeting item. So the client that doesn't have access to Podio, when they receive the email, they will just be able to kind of accept and add it to their calendar, right?
That's correct, yeah. And you guys are able to actually link your services too. If you click on here, you go into account settings. You'll see under the services tab here, you're able to link, let's say if you have share file, any of these services, Google, you can link Google. So if you have maybe Gmail that you want, you can click on the calendar icon up here on the top. And just by clicking the wrench, once you've associated your Google account, you can now export to an external calendar, meaning you can export your Podio information to like the Google Calendar or whatever other service. And same thing, you can bring in your Google Calendar into Podio. So that's another thing that you can think of as well.
Right, and just to understand then, so would it kind of sync between the two calendars, or you just kind of, so how does it work?
It will sync between the two depending on what you select. So if we have like show from external, if I check this, it will show everything that's listed as an item that's not in Podio that is in my Google Calendar. And if I click the export to calendar here, I select the service. So now I say I want to export, and then you pick and choose. I want to export the tasks, anything involving me, and you kind of pick and choose. And by clicking Add Export, it's going to adjust itself. So anytime you add something new in the calendar, it's going to display on the exported calendar as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Very helpful. Thank you.
No problem. All right. I think that's all the time we really have for the questions right now, guys. But if you want to type them in on the question portion, we'll be able to get back to you with some replies in regards to that. I want to just thank you guys for the time. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. If you are interested, like I said, we are going to be posting this on a blog, and I'm going to be uploading it to the GoToWebinar platform as well. So I hope you guys have a great day, and good luck with getting everything set up, and we're always here to assist.